I have really struggled in a lot of ways with my daughter. And that's why I, about 6 months ago, picked up a copy of this book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. In it, Meg Michler talks about the importance of a male role model in a young woman's life, a stable, centralized, emotionally intelligent, rational, level-headed, kind, disciplined male role model in the life of a young lady, a young girl, is crucial to their development and sense of self-worth. Gentlemen, you know how important fatherhood is, whether you grew up as a young boy with an engaged, present, loving, committed, disciplined father, or the complete opposite. Maybe your father was not physically around, or maybe he was, and he was verbally or emotionally or even physically abusive. Regardless, whether you had a present, loving father in your life or not, I think it's safe to say that all of us understand the importance of having that type of father in our lives. A father who's engaged, who loves his children, who works hard on himself, who stands as a beacon and a pillar of an example to his young boys and girls. I know I'm a little bit late in getting this one to you for Father's Day. That was last weekend. I've been pretty busy with some traveling with my oldest son. This is becoming a family tradition each summer where we spend a week on the island of Molokai hunting together, axis deer and goats and everything else that we can hunt and feed our families with. In fact, a couple of years ago, speaking of Father's Day, I almost died hunting goats on the Big Island in Hawaii in front of my son. It was on Father's Day, and I had made a miscalculation, we'll say, and was very close to my death. And I'm not exaggerating, and that is not hyperbole. But we made it through, and here I am. And as of the release of this podcast, hopefully I'm back from Hawaii with my son after a successful hunt. But it got me thinking a lot about how important the role as fathers that we play in the lives of our children. Our boys ultimately look to us as an example of the kind of men they're going to become, and our daughters ultimately look not only to us as an example of the type of people they will become, but also the type of men that at some point they will partner with and hopefully build a long-term, committed, loving relationship where they can build their own family together. And on the back of Father's Day, let me first say this: Happy Father's Day to all of you who are fathers and you're doing the work. I know it's difficult. I know it's thankless many times. I know there's a lot of sleepless nights. If you have a newborn, you know that. Even if you have, as I do, a 17-year-old who's getting ready to branch out on his own and take on the world, that's a new concern for me. Maybe you're an empty nester, but you still think about your sons and daughters and what they might be experiencing. So I just want to say Happy Father's Day. I know I'm a week late, but I was busy doing fatherly things. So today I thought, in honor of Father's Day, I would share with you I think I have six book recommendations that I believe every father ought to read, embrace, know, understand, and implement in his life and for the betterment of his children. So let's get right to it. Number one is The Boy Crisis by Dr. Warren Farrell. Unfortunately, we live in a culture and a society that is stacked against our young men. And when I started this movement 10 years ago, I would say things like that. And it was amazing to me how many people would mock and ridicule and criticize and overlook and diminish what I was saying. But I don't think it's a question anymore. At least I hope it's not. The school system, academia, the medical community, entertainment, the government, all of these institutions are quite literally stacked against the betterment of our young men. And in that book, Dr. Warren Farrell makes the case that there is a crisis for young men in the halls of academia specifically, and why our institutions and how exactly they are failing our young boys. We see failing metrics from incarceration rates, drug use, suicide, depression, anxiety, even grades are slipping behind, engaged in families, engaged in relationships. Men are just falling behind. And he talks about specifically what the problems are and what we might be able to do as fathers to not only help our sons, but help our community. And I do believe we have a responsibility to do that. If we can first take care of ourselves, second, take care of our families, third, start to branch out and take care of other people, then we have a responsibility to do that. So if you want to know the root of the issues that we're dealing with in this country specifically regarding the struggling and horrendous metrics for our young men, The Boy Crisis is a very, very great read. And I've had Dr. Warren Farrell on the podcast twice now, so if you want to just catch the hour-long synopsis, you can type in Order of Man, Warren Farrell in the search wherever you listen to podcast, and you'll find it. So The Boy Crisis is number one. Number two is a book called Iron John by Robert Bly. This is a little bit of poetry, a little bit of fiction. It's a very good book. It's a very interesting read, but he makes the case in that book that men are, or young boys are designed to at some point separate from their mothers. And in the book, he introduces a character that I believe he calls the Wild Man. And the Wild Man is this hairy creature that introduces this young boy to who he is by nature and helps him recognize and acknowledge that he's no longer an innocent little child that should cling to his mother, but should embrace risk and challenge and adventure and at some point separate from the mother. And I know the ladies who listen, and there are quite a few single mothers, in fact, who listen to this podcast, might think to themselves or might act as if they don't want to let their young boys grow up. I can see why it would be uncomfortable. I can see why that would be a challenging thing for you, maybe even more so than your male counterparts, his father or stepfather or other uncles and grandparents, grandfathers in his life. But we've got to let our boys grow up, and we've got to let them embrace what it means to be a quote-unquote wild man within contained and controlled environments for the better outcome of themselves and for other people. So I love this book. It's called, again, Iron John by Robert Bly. And I think it's entertaining, it's informative, and it really underscores the importance of boys separating from their mothers and stepping into the quote-unquote wild man that they have within them. Number three, one of my favorite books of all time, in fact, very, very instrumental in the early formation of this movement, is a book called Wild at Heart by John Eldredge. I had John on the podcast 2 or 3 months ago at this point, and what an honor it was to be able to sit down face-to-face with John and tell him, thank you for being so instrumental in creating the movement that we now call Order of Man, with, of course, the Protect, Provide, Preside mission and motto. In the book, again, very similar thread line, he makes the case that men are designed to step away from their mothers, designed to step away from the feminine and step into a wild sort of life. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, "Deep in his heart, every man longs for a battle to fight, an adventure to live, and a beauty to rescue." And in this book, John makes the case that we as men ought to embrace those things, a battle to fight, an adventure, and a beauty to rescue. He also talks about the importance of embracing the wild nature of ourselves and how we can get into nature, how we can get into the world, we can learn about who we are, we can separate from our mothers, we can embrace fully who we are as men. And I think if I were to give a quick synopsis or even just one sentence overview of what this book is, he makes the case that men are constantly asking themselves, consciously or subconsciously, do I have what it takes? Do I have what it takes? That's what all men are trying to answer. And if you have young boys, whether you're a father or you're a mother, you need to help them with activities, encounters, experiences that help them formulate the answer in the affirmative that yes, they do indeed have what it takes. Not always comfortable, not always easy, but worth it if we want to see our young men develop. Number 4, this one is for the girl dads. It's called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters by Meg Meeker. I have 3 boys and 1 daughter. I'm not going to say I'm great with my sons. I think that would be an overstatement, but I'm better with my sons than I am with my daughter. And the reason is because I understand boys. I understand the nature of boys. I get what young men are doing. Obviously, I've been in their shoes. I know what it's like to have all those hormones coursing through your veins, and you're worried about girls and competing and fighting and posturing and taking risks and gaining independence as a young boy, I don't know the same thing about young women. And to be blunt as I can, I have really struggled in a lot of ways with my daughter. And that's why I, about 6 months ago, picked up a copy of this book, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters. In it, Meg Michler talks about the importance of a male role model in a young woman's life. In fact, I think in The Boy Crisis, Dr. Warren Farrell talks about this too, that a stable, centralized, emotionally intelligent, rational, level-headed, kind, disciplined male role model in the life of a young lady, a young girl, is crucial to their development and sense of self-worth. So if you have young daughters and you're wondering how you can connect with them but still maintain your masculine frame and love on your daughters the way you ought to love on them as a man, this is a great book. She's not making the case that you need to be more feminine or you need to be more soft, or you need to act out of character based on who you are as a man, but how we embrace our masculine characteristics in order to lead, guide, instruct, coach, and ultimately serve our daughters. That one's called Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters by Meg Michler. I have two more here for you guys. The next one, I think this is number 5, is Men's Work by Connor Beaton. Connor is a deep thinker. He's trained with psychology and therapy, and he understands a lot of what I fail to understand as a man. I'm an intuitive person by nature. I feel like if it's something I should do, then I ought to go do it. And I think where Connor and I might differentiate a little bit more is he's a deeper thinker. And in his book, Men's Work, he talks about integrating the shadow. If you're familiar with shadow work and the concepts by people like Carl Jung, you might have a little bit of a glimpse into what Connor talks about in the book, Men's Work. How do we embrace who we truly are? How do we embrace the challenging sides or even the darker emotions that we may experience? And what I like about the work that he's doing is he's talking about how to regulate our emotions. And as fathers, that's crucial that we do. I have 4 kids. I get frustrated. I get angry. I get short. I get agitated all the time with my children. And the difference between successful fathers and I think unsuccessful fathers is the men who learn how to regulate their emotions and show up in a very powerful way for themselves and for the people that they love. So if you're looking for a book on how to regulate yourself, how to understand the nature of masculinity and manliness, how to wrestle with the darker nature at times of ourselves and integrate that, not stuff it down, not eliminate it, not avoid it, and certainly not pretend as if it doesn't exist, but to embrace who we are as men, integrate it into the way that we show up and show up powerfully as masculine, manly role models for the people that we love and we care about. And the last one, and of course, this is a bit biased, I would highly encourage you guys, if you have not yet read a copy of my book, Sovereignty, The Battle for the Hearts and Minds of Men, I think that's crucial. I would not have wrote it if I didn't think that was the case. There is a battle for your heart and your mind and your soul. And academia, as I mentioned earlier, medical institutions, and the government would love nothing more than for you to be weak, pathetic, cowardly, lazy, and a sack of crap, if I'm being blunt as I can be. Because you are easier to control when you are behaving that way. If you want to lead your wife, if you want to lead your children, it is a prerequisite that you have sovereignty, that you have liberty over your own life, that you can lead yourself, that you can overcome temptation, that you can figure out how to serve not only yourself, but other people. And in the book, I make the case that sovereignty is probably the biggest battle that we as men will ever face, but the one that's going to move the needle the most. When a father, a patriarch, is in his home and he's leading righteously and he's leading in his masculinity and he's leaning into who he is as a man and he's serving his wife and his kids, we become unstoppable. And if thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions, and even billions of people, men around the planet, embrace the idea of sovereignty in their own lives and then turn around and serve those they love, mainly to their children, the world will be a completely different place. So I tried to give you a broad array. It's not all on parenting per se, but these 6 books that I shared with you will not only help you become a better man, but they will help you become a better father. Now, I don't want you to read 17 books. I don't even know if I'm even suggesting at this point that you read all 6 for the rest of the year, because more important to me is not how many books you read, but how much you're implementing. So if you pick 2 books out of this, maybe you read a book a month. Maybe you read 1 per quarter. We've got 2 more quarters, so you read 2 of these books. And you implement everything that you can from those books, you'll be better off than if you didn't. So again, the books are The Boy Crisis by Warren Farrell, Iron John by Robert Bly, Wild at Heart by John Eldridge, Strong Fathers, Strong Daughters by Meg Meeker, Men's Work by Connor Beaton, and of course, Sovereignty by me, Ryan Michler. Those are the 6 books that I would recommend on the tail end of Father's Day. I know I missed it last week. I'm actually recording this episode before Father's Day because we've got our trip coming up, and I will be unavailable for the next week as I spend time with my oldest son. And unfortunately, and fortunately, I don't have many of these left. This might be the last one I have with my son before he moves out. I might have one more next year, but it's coming quick. And it's poignant that we're talking about the importance of being good fathers, whether they're leaving, whether you're having newborns, or maybe you're becoming an empty nester. Crucial that we learn how to step up as men and as fathers. So let me know if there's other books that you would like to add to this list. Please let me know. There's a great resource that we just made available. It's our bookshelf. If you go to orderofman.com/bookshelf, all of these books are on that list. You're going to get 20 to 25 books that every man ought to read in the subjects of philosophy, masculinity, philosophy. I think I already said philosophy, fatherhood, etc. So if you go to orderofman.com/bookshelf, you'll get those 25 books, including the books that I'm currently reading as of right now. One other resource, if you want to go deep into any of these subjects, fatherhood, or the boy crisis, or how to integrate your shadow work, or free yourself and become more wild by nature in a constructive way, then join our exclusive brotherhood, the Iron Council. It's open for enrollment until the end of June. You can do that at orderofman.com/Iron Council. All right, guys. Again, a little late, I know, but I want to wish those of you who are fathers or soon to be fathers a happy Father's Day. You are doing good work. You are doing much needed work. The world would not operate without you. I know there's a common push out there to say that maybe men aren't needed. That is the furthest thing from the truth. You are needed, you are appreciated, and you are making a difference. All right, guys, we will be back next week for another interview. Until then, go out there, take action, be a good and strong, capable father, and become the man you are meant to be.